let's quickly look at this Shabana Mammu statement, because Shabana Mammu was actually stronger on this, and she sort of almost had to be to deal with the sort of PR of it after the Jess Phillips stuff. And she said, "It is time for truth. For years, the victims were ignored." And she goes on to say, "We came to know this as the grooming gang scandal, though I've never thought the name matched the scale of the evil. We must call them what they were: evil child rapists." And I won't read the whole thing, but there's some key parts where she tries to rectify some of the things that people are worried about. So she says, firstly, this inquiry is not and never will be watered down on my watch. Its scope will not change, nor will its intent. Secondly, this inquiry will focus on grooming gangs. That will not change. So people are worried about it broadening. Thirdly, it will explicitly examine the ethnicity and religion of the offenders. So that's pretty big. And she goes on and says there'll be no hiding place for those who abuse the most vulnerable in our society, etc. So this is nor will those who ignored victims and even covered up what occurred be shielded from the truth. So to some degree, we're in this position where only someone like Shabana Mammu can actually be that tough, because she is a Pakistani Muslim by heritage herself. And that's this weird world we're in. And sometimes that reaches grotesque levels where it's like, oh, we'll get a black candidate so no one can call them racist. And it's just kind of very generic and stupid. But I suppose there's some argument for it with Mahmood, because I suppose in a lot of cases, you get someone from that community. It tends to have more impact. You could use that in any example. If Manchester suddenly kicked off, you'd want to get someone from Manchester, like Andy Burnham or something, go in and talk to them or something. So maybe it is normal that she, but it is does also show a lack of confidence and it's part of the problem that we can't just call it out and couldn't just call it out from the start. And there was all this ridiculousness about racism, which has led to so many atrocities. But the world that we're in, even though I hate it, you can see why Shabana Mammu is able to be tougher on it than some people. So she's come out and made this sort of tough statement. And by the way, Kemi Badenoch, as we record, has just done PMQ saying that Jess Phillips should be sacked as well. I don't know, Paul, what did you make of the whole Mahmood Phillips thing?
Well, first of all, with regards to should she be sacked, she should absolutely be removed from having anything to do with this inquiry. She's been part of the problem since the beginning, right from denying Alderman inquiry to denying a national inquiry, all the way through to Weasley words around the broadening of the scope. And just very quickly, the only thing I think that should be broadened is the scope of who the abusers are, because it goes beyond the physical abusers. And I'm not suggesting that some politicians are all, in on this, but this is a perpetuation of the abuse. Someone like Jess Phillips standing up and losing her temper for her own reputation in Parliament yesterday is further part of the abuse. So I would be very careful if I was her, and I would step aside. She has a good history. You and I aren't big fans of Jess Phillips, but she could demonstrate a good history on some previous cases of defending women and children. I don't think she goes about it in the right way. And because she doesn't go about it in the right way, she's now found herself in this position where she's become the story, and she needs to remove herself from that. With regard to Mahmood coming in, well, of course, that's a vote of that's a vote of confidence in the Home Secretary and not in Jess Phillips. They've kind of put some distance between the Home Secretary and Jess Phillips's role and said, Shabana Mahmood, is more powerful. And it's a good statement, but it would have been a much better statement a year, 2, maybe even 3 years ago. Maybe even 5-10 years ago, it would have been a good statement. Coming out and saying it now is politicking. That's all it is. I mean, it's basically stepping all over what Jess Phillips has been trying to do, which is essentially unclear, because it's not clear what she's trying to do. But whatever it is she was trying to do, she stepped in all over that and said, no, this is how it's going to be, which is kind of putting a line in the sand and saying, going forward, this is how it's going to be. Great. But make something happen just like that. And you'll have to if you've got 4 victims that are standing aside because of Jess Phillips, then she has to be removed from the inquiry entirely, I think.
Yeah, and it probably, knowing this Labour government, it probably will happen, but just too late, much like they did with Mandelson and other people. Maybe we'll just end this topic by looking quickly at this from Jade, who's a survivor on Good Morning Britain, which I thought was quite interesting. She had some pretty strong words about it. Let's have a look.
It's making me angry. It's just, why is it taking you so long to want to do anything? Why are you not doing anything? We've been to the House of Lords. I sat in front of Jess Phillips and blurted out all of our emotions. Our emotions got the better of us. We got a little bit angry with her. And all she wanted to do was walk away from the situation. instead of facing it. It's like we're not ever going to get anywhere with this, and we now are never going to have any hope, because all we ever do is hold on to hope and get let down again and again.
What do you want to see happen now?
I want the law to be changed. I want these grooming gangs to be, all of them, to be sent to jail. Like, High Wycombe happened to me, and they're not sorting out the grooming gangs, but they're wanting to open children homes. Why? Sort out what the problem that's happening in your town before opening more opportunities for these kids
potentially to happen again.
Yeah. Actually deal with the situation.
And there was another part. There's another part just later where she actually calls out Jess Phillips specifically.
In your face the whole time, and actually, I was going to say, when you've got someone like Jess Phillips that just smirks in your face the whole time and actually don't do what you've asked of her, like, there's no point. There's no point with. Sorry, I don't.
Well, we have approached Jess Phillips for a comment, and we haven't had a direct one.
And she did say, didn't she, yesterday, that allegations of intentional delay, lack of interest, or widening of the inquiry scope and dilution are false. I mean, Maggie, let's come to you on what will.
Well, so I wanted to get that in just so that for legal reasons, but yeah, this is fascinating because the actual survivor Jade there says someone like Jess Phillips smirking in your face, which is not a great thing to hear. And by the way, for the viewer and listener, I've just realized last time we played a Good Morning Britain clip, they demonetized and did a copyright strike, so we had to edit it out. So if there was suddenly nothing there, that's what was happening there. But anyway, what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's incredibly brave of these women who are now in their 30s, or I assume, to come out and talk. And you can see that they're from a certain demographic, all of them. It's not unfair to say they're from the poorer end of society. These are disenfranchised white women, or white girls as they were, that were deliberately targeted because of that. And now they're being further abused by people in power because they too are treating them like they're stupid. There isn't one stupid woman there. All of these, a woman like that is coming out now as an adult on national TV and calling out Jess Phillips. They can see her face. They know who she is. They'll now know that she was subjected to sexual assault by the Pakistani rape gangs as she was growing up. This is not easy for her. If Jess Phillips had to sit in a room where these women were shouting and screaming at her saying, "We want justice," she should have sat still. She doesn't have to take the blame. This is the problem here. We're seeing time and time again that the repeating of the behaviours of Jess Phillips. If she's getting up in a meeting like that and walking away, she's making it about her. These women aren't blaming her. They're saying, you're the person who can do something about it. Please, for the love of God, do something. And she does smirk. She does have this supercilious look. She's not the right person to be involved in something as delicate as this, because you always get the feeling with Jess Phillips, she's doing it for her career.
Yeah, tend to agree. I mean, she'd say, no, I've done all this amazing work, but yeah, there's something off about her whole attitude, as we said. No, that's been terrible. This whole thing's been, but Labour didn't want to do the inquiry. We all know they're completely the wrong people to do it. They fundamentally believe it's far right. Ironically, the only one, as I've said, that actually seems like she might want to do it is Shabana Mammu, calling out, in a sense, her own community, you could argue, being of Pakistani heritage, which is, as I've said, a bit easier to do, perhaps. But she's the only one that at least even sounds tough on it. A bit like immigration, which she also won't be able to do anything about. Yeah, it's all very depressing. So, I mean, actually, we're meant to be a light-hearted podcast. This is a very dark, depressing topic.
Well, what can you do? I mean, it doesn't matter where I talk about this. I can't help but get about as angry as I get about talking about anything, because we know who the perpetrators are. We know that it happened. There's tens of women that have waived their anonymity now. And all you have to do, I keep saying this, and by the way, just quickly go back to something you said there. Smearing everybody, jumping on the far right bandwagon, as Keir Starmer did, basically set this inquiry back. Just as momentum was being achieved, he smeared anybody who wanted it solved, including, by the way, he forgets this, including the victims themselves, because they want it solved, as far right. But with regards to where we go from here, you can't have it should be independent of the Labour Party. It should be independent of the Tories as well. They're both under investigation. It should be independent of almost. You could probably get someone in from the Commonwealth. You could probably get someone in from Canada or Australia, somewhere like that, and say, "Come on in." There'd have been no chance of them having anything to do with it, because you will be investigating people, Labour councillors, Tory councillors, Labour MPs. Maybe Jess Phillips, as part of this process, has inadvertently caused more problems. So Keir Starmer definitely, his comments did not help. These people are all under the spotlight.
Yeah, and there's another small technical. Well, it's not that small actually. A technicality where the survivors want a judge to be in charge of it, talking about who should be running it, rather than former police, because they're not comfortable with police, because of course many police were part of the cover-up. And Starmer in PMQs today explained the procedural reason why there shouldn't be a judge, but Kemi was representing the survivors asking for a judge. And the whole of Parliament, actually, every time Kemi brought up something uncomfortable, they jeered at her and said shame and things like this, because they don't want to deal with any of this.
Sake, I'm sorry.
I know. No, it's reasonable, because she's just quoting this. They think she's playing politics, and they can say, "Oh, you're playing politics," where she's just quoting the survivors, and they can say two things: one, you're playing politics, and two, the Tories were in when a lot of this happened as well, which is true. But you can't. You really have no leg to stand on, because it has to now come out. So everything Kemi's saying is a quote from the survivors. You have to just listen to it and shut up. But they're all jeering in Parliament, and it's a very bad look for them, because their jeers may be aimed at, oh, Kemi's playing politics, but we just see them jeering and you think you're jeering at survivors, essentially. So shut up.
Well, it's ridiculous. And I don't know if any survivors were in the gallery today. If they were, then it cannot be very easy to watch that. And certainly if they're watching from home or watching it back on, GB News or YouTube or something, then they are going to feel incredibly angry by what they see in Parliament. And as an opposition leader, Kemi Badenoch has every right to stand up and say, what are you doing, and hold them to account. And she's doing a fairly good job of that, to be honest, a better job of that than she's done of other things. So, look, this is almost the sort of thing you want to shut Parliament down for. You want to go, you lot are part of the problem. You need to stand aside. We need to get people in to, you probably don't want the police involved. The trouble is, you've got to, at some point, where do you stop? You've got to start trusting somebody in authority in order for it to take place. But when someone like Keir Starmer, Mr. Rules, Mr. Law, says, well, procedurally, we have to do X, Y, and Z, it's like, yeah, of course you do, mate. It's all set up procedurally to avoid the problems you're trying to avoid. You're just going to have to step away from tradition and procedure.